Hey everyone, this is Andy Slamans from Amazing Freedom. This is the 100 Real Seller series. If you haven't had a chance yet, I encourage you to go back and watch the previous episodes. We've had some phenomenal Amazon sellers. And the reason we started this series is we want to bring before you real folks who are in the nuts and bolts and in the trenches, actually really selling on Amazon. YouTube is awesome, Facebook is awesome, but unfortunately it creates a platform that can allow a lot of folks to talk about selling on Amazon or, sell courses about selling on Amazon, but they themselves don't actually sell on Amazon. And so a lot of times that misinformation can be misleading. And what we want to be able to show you and tell you through these 100 real seller interviews is that it's not all unicorns and rainbows as Amazon sellers, as brand builders, or if your business model is online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, or wholesale. Each of those have challenges. And unfortunately, Amazon's sales channel is so powerful that there are a number of people that can get lucky on Amazon, really with any of those business models, including private label, because they drive such massive traffic. But what we want to do is we want to bring you 100 real sellers who have transitioned from that phase of luckiness, of just choosing a product, slapping it up on Amazon and immediately getting sales. And there are still a lot of sellers that do that, to that next level where you transition from being just lucky to actually begin building a real business that has real value. And so the past interviews have been awesome. Today, we're joined by Geoff Vallance, who again is going to bring you the real nuts and bolts and in the trenches information about building brands on Amazon. Geoffrey, thank you so much for joining me today. I'll say this before I allow you to introduce yourself. I actually had an opportunity, I believe it was about 6 months ago. Geoffrey came to my area and had a great time with him in my home around the table, drinking some coffee. I think we spent 2 or 3 hours together with my wife. Super impressed at the brand that Geoffrey's been able to build on Amazon. He's continuing to build that out, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit today. So Geoffrey, thank you so much for joining us. And I do want to say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you very much for having me, Andy, and looking forward to what's to come.
All right, awesome. So what we'd like to do is the first question basically is share with us how you first heard about Amazon, Geoffrey, and then how long you've been selling on Amazon.
Yeah, so many years ago, about 2014, my wife and I were looking to, the job I was in wasn't probably going to go anywhere. And we saw the writing on the wall that it wasn't going to provide for my family long term. And we really wanted freedom of time and freedom of finances. And so we tried a few things, like some MLM stuff and stuff like that. And got pretty, discouraged. And
wait, which MLM did you try?
I don't want to out people here.
All right.
So the main one we tried was Isogenics, the shakes.
Uh-huh.
But my wife's dabbled in things like Mary Kay and like oil stuff and things like that, and we realized that it really wasn't for us. I mean, just our personality types, and we really wanted, we really kind of value friendships. And that's kind of mean to the people that.
No, it's interesting that you bring that up because I've met a number of Amazon sellers. Like that was kind of the progression. Like they were doing MLMs and just kind of got burnt out on always having to reach out to family and friends, right?
Right.
They wanted to create a business, and so it's a natural transition. So it's interesting for you to say that.
Right, and we lost friendships from it as well. It was like, no, we're not pressuring anybody, but we're probably the least pressured people that you could meet. But so we started, praying, being Christians. We just prayed for a while, and then a friend of mine posted something on Facebook, just like, "Hey, I made like $250,000 selling on Amazon last year. Does anyone want to know how I did it? And so I was like, sure, $250,000, that's good. And so kind of signed up, and yeah, kind of went from there. He started just kind of training us bit by bit in arbitrage.
And who was that?
It was Zach Young.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was wondering how our connection came about. Yeah, I love Zach.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know if he's in it anymore. He's gone to other entrepreneurial adventures, but yeah, I love him, and he was basically the one that showed me how to like manually. This was before software like tactical arbitrage and is it OA X-ray, I think, and stuff that were out there. So it was like 2 or 3 hour long videos of like live going through. Well, this is how you source product from Amazon through arbitrage, basically. So so at the beginning of 2015, I kind of jumped in with, we had a bit of a tax return, so we could jump in and kind of start doing that. And pretty quickly, actually, we saw that private label was the way to go on that. Mm-hmm. I think probably around that time, Zach had connected with you, and you were able to, teach us some things. So how I got into private label was, over the years, started kind of building my OA business while doing the 9 to 5.
When did you leave your full-time job?
Yeah, so I left my full-time job. Where are we now? We're at 2020, sorry. So yeah, 2016, I think.
Wow, so you've been selling them for about 18 months, and you're like, okay, this thing is real. Let's go all in.
Yeah, so actually might have been 2017, thinking about it now. But it was like my OA business was doing well enough that I could quit my job. And the idea being that I was working so much on the OA business and I had a 9 to 5, probably a mistake that I made at the time in hindsight was I probably should have just kind of let the OA business go and completely focused on doing something private label. But the original vision was, okay, quit my job, and then I can take those hours that I was doing and pour it into private label. So so we did that, and took your guys' course, and basically, and this isn't a plug for a course or anything, but I know that you and Laurent and Nathan and your team have pretty much taught me almost everything I know about private label. So soon after we moved, I quit my job, started doing private label research kind of here and there, and realized I needed to, there was an opportunity for me to connect with someone to kind of basically mentor me in getting my private label stuff off the ground. So, and it was, I think you probably even had him on here, Craig Soderdahl.
Yes, yeah.
So he's
phenomenal seller.
Yeah, great guy. We had many hours of chatting together over private label stuff. And so
let's just address this real quick, because a lot of people are like opposed to paying for courses or paying for coaching. I've always believed in it. I believe it shortens the learning curve. So this was a private coaching that you reached out to Craig, or he reached out to you. You paid him money, and I've heard you share this before, and it was extremely valuable.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't cheap, and that's not on Craig or anyone else. It was one of those things where it was like, well, this is a real stretch for me. Even originally purchasing your guys' course and like courses prior, like every kind of incremental step I've done with like moving towards private label, it's always been like, oh, can I stretch this? And I have made, not with you guys or with Craig or anything, but I have occasionally made purchases where it's like, oh, that really didn't help,
Right.
in other, shall we say, forms of selling on Amazon and stuff. And so there's always a little bit of trepidation with that. But yeah, I mean, each time it's always hurt a little bit, but it's also, I think, having that there has also, like, you paid for something, so you want to get the most out of it, right?
So tell us about, because I know you shared with me, I think you guys were both kind of looking together for potential products, right?
Yeah, so we kind of went with your sourcing format on how to do that, and so I was able to kind of push OA to the side or have someone kind of work on it for me while I exclusively sourced. So I just sat myself in my office and said, okay, 9 to 5, even though I'm not on a 9 to 5 job anymore, like I was going to force myself to look for product. And, you know, through the sourcing methods that you say, and, you know, whether that's rabbit trailing, or, you know, on Amazon, or looking through Viral Launch. Or
I'm just thinking, like, getting back to Craig, and maybe I'm
sorry.
Yeah. So were you working with him too, like looking for potential products, or
so it was like a mentoring kind of. He
like
took a few people under his wing, and for a number of months actually. So we would like FaceTime once a week at the beginning. We would have like there was maybe a dozen people that he was working with, and we would meet maybe once a month on that and kind of just explore the things we needed to be looking at. And yeah, so I would take my 9 to 5 and basically do all my sourcing, like figuring out what products had potential. And then I would bring them to Craig, and we would have like an hour or two on Skype, and I would say, okay, here's my top 5 or 10 that I think are real good potentials. And then he would shred them apart. No, he would see things that maybe I wouldn't see initially. Even though I'd done the courses and stuff, you know, I remember submitting some things to you guys, and it was like garlic presses and lemon squeezers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that to me is a huge value. Like, you know, whatever mentoring, you know, you get, or whatever course, if you're newer to private label, if you're able to submit like potential products and they're able to give you feedback, I mean, that literally can save sellers thousands of dollars.
Tens of thousands, you know.
Right. I often tell people my first product were silicone spatula sets. And, you know, if I had a mentor to be able to share who had been selling for a while, they would have put a big red light up and said, no way. Right.
Right. And it took like 2 or 3 months really of searching and kind of rabbit trailing. In the meantime, you know, I'm setting up the business as well. So it's not like, you know, maybe 30 to 40 hours of research. I was pretty focused on it. And then one day we're kind of, you know, looking at what I've gotten, and I've gotten better at finding stuff. And some of it was maybe, you know, like too expensive for me to start with and stuff. I had a budget, and we came across a product, and you know, I was looking at something else thinking, oh, well, this one's better than what we're looking at. And Craig was like, no, look at this. It's like, we pulled up all the details and Viral Launch and everything. And it looked like it was going to be a real big hit. So, or at least, you know, it would be a good starter product. Yeah. So, and I was initially like, I don't know, you know, it wasn't something I was passionate about, you know, which I think is, and you probably discussed it before, but like, you might be passionate about, I don't know, horseback riding or whatever, but you know, there might be, it's in the numbers, right? There's no demand for it, maybe on Amazon.
Right.
So getting over, you know, I think one of the things when looking for a private label product is kind of like getting out of your system, like the things that you think are going to be good to start with, right? You know, oh, this is a popular product. These fidget spinners are great. I can do this, you know. And then you start researching and you realize, well, everyone and their mom is doing that. And then, and then you dig down deeper and deeper, and you get better at finding product and stuff.
So you're searching with him, and you've
Yep.
discovered this product in this niche. It was in something that I think that you hadn't sold, in before.
Right. Yep.
So you get the confirmation from Craig, and he's like,
Yep.
"Yeah, look, we think this is a great product." So boom,
Yeah.
you go to work, right? And this is kind of like your first private label baby.
Yeah. So then I start getting on Alibaba and like looking for manufacturers basically, and that took a little while to. I know you're a big proponent of getting on Skype and everything. My productivity is more in the morning than the evening, so getting up and staying up in the evening to like chat with these, and I did. I did more at the beginning than I do now because I have manufacturers. We can just email back and forth a little bit, and it's pretty much doesn't speed anything up now. Right. Being live with them. But and so I probably had 4 or 5 manufacturers that gave me quotes, and I kind of went with the one. It was actually a little higher than most of the other ones, but their communication was much better. And in hindsight with that, I found that with sometimes the cheapest isn't the best. So we've had products come in like samples and stuff, and the things they give us are like have visible dirt on them, and it's right. Like you're meant to be impressing me right now, and this is like dirty. Right. I had one recently, and they were like, "Well, we can't guarantee any less than 20% defect on the, or like 20% of them are going to be dirty." And I'm like, how do that's crazy. But
right. So this is Geoff Vallance. He's been selling on Amazon since 2015. Started selling in a similar way to many of the folks that are in our audience. He started selling with online arbitrage, and then progressed basically to private label. He actually has a second account, and he's kind of winding down his online arbitrage business. Yep. He's been building his private label brand, I believe, since like 2017, 2018, yep. Or maybe it was 2018 that you started.
Yeah, like officially.
Yeah, and so he's got a great brand. I was able to spend 3 hours with him here in my home about 6 months ago. He's at a level now where he's profiting, we say profiting between $8,000 and $12,000 a month. And obviously some months are very different. And so, he's having great growth. He's got a great niche. Like anything though, when I talk to other sellers, there comes a time, and let's talk about this a little bit, Jeffrey, yeah. Where, you kind of hit that point, and it becomes a real business. And so when you got a real business, you deal with real business issues, like cash flow, like placing more orders, like inventory projections, and understanding like, okay, whether you airship or boat ship, it's going to land at this date. And then I really only have 15 days before I have to wire another 20%, to get. And so, I know those are the constant issues that we are struggling with now, yep. As we've moved out of the phase that where you're just lucky, yep. To moving it into it's a real business. And now you have to start treating it with those real business issues. And yep. So, talk to us a little bit about those struggles or those challenges, like with inventory management. Have you been able to avoid stocking out? How do you handle inventory projections? Because really, you and I, with a brand that I'm building with my nephew, Nate, we've only been building it for 18 months, and it's still kind of in startup mode. And so right. You're introducing new products to the marketplace, and you don't know necessarily how fast those products are going to sell or how slow they're going to sell. And right. So, you're just kind of testing and then trying to figure that out. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was pretty quick actually that I hit my first problem. My first product, I bought like 1,000 units of it, thinking I'm going to start low, even though it cost me more to obviously do that. And it sold out within like 3 months. And I could see that, after like a month, I'm like, wow, this is selling way better than I was expecting. But I don't, oh man, I don't know if I have the cash flow to like totally get another order yet. Because even that first order was really pretty expensive for me at the time. And so, you know, I sell about half of it, and I'm like, okay, I really need to do something here. So, yeah, some of my first issues were selling too quickly, which is a good issue to have. And then obviously cash flow. But with the cash flow part, I was able to, I took my first product and basically use that as like a guinea pig. You know, if I can make the mistakes, flesh out everything, you know, if anything bad, you know, with the manufacturer happens, then I know, you know, I've learned some lessons there. But it actually went pretty smoothly and until this point. But it gave me a good platform that I was able to talk to some private investors, basically my in-laws, and say, hey, look, would you be willing to invest in some way, whether that was through like a personal loan or like some interest in the business and stuff like that. So, so we worked something out, and they were able to fund some of, you know, that and then the next lines of products and stuff. So
that's a great point. I just want to draw that out a little bit. So if you're watching this live, I promise you that if you begin to build your brand and you actually find a product that is successful, you are going to face this issue of how am I going to manage my cash flow, and am I going to need to seek out capital, you know, to fund those logistical and those cash flow issues. And so very creative way. That's always my first recommendation. Like, you know, once you find a product that's selling, the margin's there, you know, you can show the numbers. You know, if you want to go to a bank, a local bank, that's fine. You know, it's something a lot of people don't do anymore. And then, you know, my second option is then reach out to family. You know, folks that are in a situation, you know, financially where they have some capital in the bank. And look, at the bank, they're only making 2 to 3%, if that, you know, on their interest. And if they're willing to believe in you, they understand the business, and they're willing to take that risk. You know, that's a great way then to be able to infuse capital into your business. So again, like, this is a long-term mindset that a lot of Amazon sellers, because a lot of us didn't run businesses before we started selling on Amazon. You know, like, you need to understand and think about that. When you start having a successful product, it's a great thing, but it doesn't mean that these real business issues like cash flow, inventory projection, logistics, those aren't going to get any easier. Like, as your business grows, it just means that they get kind of more expensive, the numbers get higher. So that's a great way, I think, to be able to seek out to provide a cushion and work through those issues.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, you know, if you have a good product and it's, you know, making good money and good profit, and you can back up, you know, the kind of future products with some of the data as well, you know, not kind of BSing, you know, like, oh, hey, this is going to make $1 million in a year, you know, we're going to be millionaires and stuff. But with some true numbers, you know, and particularly if it's somebody, you know, related to or whatever, you can be pretty transparent with like your difficulties and all that stuff, and that, I think, helps go a long way. So
hey, let's shift gears a little bit. Share a little bit about what some of your struggles are. So again, you've got your business to like this level right here. You know, to you know, again, in real business terms, like, you're at first base. Your profit is awesome, right? But now you're trying to move to the next level. What are some things that you are doing as the CEO, right, as the founder, that are trying then to now you're trying to just level up?
Right. So there's a few things that are the struggle's always real sometimes. You know, one thing is I can't, you know, I came to realize pretty quickly I can't do it all myself. You know, things like, especially once, you know, you start getting into like several products, advertising, for example, is just a beast. It's a job in and of itself. Trying to keep all the keywords together. Um, it- you know, if you've got to design packaging, right? Are you now? Thankfully, I'm fairly okay at like fudging things with InDesign and stuff like that. But um, is it worth my time to just spend like 10 hours doing it myself, or pay someone to do it in an hour or whatever? So
like advertising, do you outsource your advertising?
yeah, so up until maybe 6 months ago, I didn't, and then I realized that it was taking me 2 or 3 days, because I was a bit of a perfectionist, so it would take me a number of days, kind of going through every single keyword, like figuring out the computations, what I'm competing against, and all that stuff. The Liron,
Right. Yeah, that was definitely a planned plug, because
that
I
was a
think
plug.
yeah. Liron, who we partner with, who I think is just the absolute genius,
He is,
with
yeah.
optimizing campaigns and advertising. So
Yeah.
that's great.
And it came to a point where it was like, okay, I was kind of spiraling out of control with some costs on advertising as well, because on the one hand you want to be number one on it, excuse me, on it, but on the other hand it's like, for some of my products the margin wasn't there. So in talking with Laurent and his team, they were able to kind of bring those costs down, but keep my at least keep my sales as they were, and in some cases go up.
So what I hear you saying is you're really trying to outsource the things that you can outsource, and you're doing that to allow you more time to do what?
So I feel like my strength in the business I have is the creating part, and kind of the sourcing, kind of the fun stuff as I see it. The original
Product
goal.
Development.
Yeah, product development. The thing that I was when we originally started was like to try and automate as much as possible. So utilizing FBA heavily, having someone do the graphic design. Obviously, you can't do all of that all at once unless you have like $100,000 just sitting there waiting to be spent. So incrementally, I've been able to do that. But also, I have to be self-aware that okay, like with advertising, I've been doing it for so long, and I'm okay at it, but now it's time I need to let it go, right? So
it's interesting hearing, like, over the last interviews that I've done with other sellers, it seems like primarily the biggest responsibility that founders are, the CEOs of their brands, they see themselves as the best use of their time is in product development. Right. Finding those new products or building out that current line. Right. And they're really trying to outsource the rest of it, which to me makes all the sense in the world.
I mean,
go ahead.
Doing the product development, as you add more SKUs, hopefully that's going to expand your business and grow your business. Whereas writing copy for Amazon pages, well, it's essential, and it will kind of to some degree help grow your business. If you're a creative person or an entrepreneurial person, that can really kind of stifle creativity and kind of thought processes, I found, at least, with expanding your business and growing in parts.
Well, what's interesting to me about that is when you just first start out selling on Amazon, you decide you want to build a brand or you want to start on private label. The biggest question usually is like, what product am I going to sell? Right. That's when you're a total newbie. And then, like us, like me, we're building. I have a brand for 5 years now. I'm continuing to add another one. I'm building with my nephew, Nathan, 18 months. That question is still at the forefront of what is the new product we're going to
What's
add?
The next thing?
And so
that's the challenge, right? Like, I feel like that's another, going back to your original question in this section, like that's another challenge that we face, although it's a more fun challenge to some degree because, it's kind of more of a creating kind of thing. But like when you hit, say you've got 5 SKUs out there and you've kind of, maxed out, say it's like colors of a t-shirt or something like that, and you've got a good hit, like what is the next step? I found for me, sometimes it was bundling your products. Sometimes is a good way to kind of bleed out some more margins. And that there's obviously dozens of different ways you could kind of expand outside of Amazon if you wanted, and Facebook marketing. You can go the whole 9 yards. But so that's another challenge. Really, is like you said, like I think trying to be a few steps ahead as well, thinking like long term. Okay, like for me personally, I probably have like another 10 products kind of within my niche that I could do. But obviously cash flow and time for me right now is the thing, but always thinking, okay, what's the next thing? And maybe I'll come across something that's better than those 10 things within my niche before, I'm able to design in it or create or, whatever, any of those things. So,
Awesome.
So it's, always like thinking, okay, what's the next thing there, so
Yep.
anyway.
So we have some new folks joining on here. So those of you that are just joining us, we're talking to Geoff Vallance. He's a seasoned Amazon seller in our space. He's been selling since 2015, has a great private label brand that he is building out. Again, this series is 100 Real Sellers, and we're doing this to let folks know it's not all unicorns and rainbows. It is very easy to get lucky on Amazon. It is much more difficult to build a real business on Amazon. So we hope that you are enjoying these interviews. Jeffrey, we like to keep these to about a half hour or less.
Okay.
Because in our Americanized culture, most people lose their attention in about 5 seconds.
Okay.
And so here's the last question that I have for you. Someone is new that is listening or watching this maybe for the first time, and they're just getting into private labeling or brand building or selling on Amazon. What's some words of wisdom that you would give? Because unfortunately, like many businesses, folks will start out and they'll hit some potholes and end up quitting. Like what are some things that you would share?
Yeah, I would say find people kind of in an inner circle that will encourage you that kind of believe in the same vision you believe in, and they might not understand it all. Like my wife, she believes in what I do, but she doesn't understand 3/4 of what I talk about sometimes. But on those days where you get so discouraged because like, oh, I can't find a product. It took me three months to find my first product, and there were days where it was like so discouraging. I'm sitting there, I'm feeling tired. Like, why can't I find the right thing? So finding people in your inner circle, if you can afford, if you have to pay for it, find a mentor that's good in that's at least a few steps ahead of you in private label, that can kind of guide you in those things. Ultimately, it's about not ever giving up, right? So even if it takes you 6 months, don't discard like the base hits, right? So like you might get something and it makes like $500 or $1,000 profit. That's a win, right? Because you've learned the logistics of how to get that product to market, and you'll be stronger for it in the long run. Obviously, if you have a product that you can expand to 10 different SKUs, then you'll know 10 times 1,000 is 10,000, right? So if you can do those base hits, so I would just encourage everyone not to give up, to keep persisting, get laser focused, but at the same time enjoy life as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you get that product in, and like take a step back and see, you've created something, you've brought it to market, even if it only makes $500 to $1,000. You've done something, and you'll be stronger for it. And but I would highly encourage people to get just a small circle of trusted people that you can either bounce ideas off of, or, when you're having a rough day, that, they'll be able to kind of pick you up and get you motivated again. And, continuing to watch these videos and listening to the podcasts as well, of hearing the real Amazon sellers. I'm sure almost everyone you interview, right, has gone through like a ton of hassle and trouble trying to get their products to market. And I'm sure they at some point have questioned, is this the right thing? But
Absolutely.
But it's worth it when you get to the finish line now. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much. Again, this is the 100 Real Sellers. We're going to be bringing you many more over the next 52 weeks. And we're doing this because we want to show it's not all unicorns and rainbows, but at the same time, we also are bringing you real sellers to let you know that there are real folks like Jeffrey and myself who are supporting our family 100% by the products that we've been able to build and private label on Amazon. So if you're watching this on Facebook, I encourage you, go to my personal Facebook wall. I just made a post. Amazon put out a great news article and video about this little town in Iowa that has 5 or 6 full-time brand builders who've all decided, they didn't know each other, but they all live in this small little town, and they're building amazing brands using the Amazon sales channel. And so, I know my partner, Nathan, and I, we believe 100%. We've been able to build a brand over just the last 18 months to over $1 million in sales. Our projected sales for 2020 are $3 million, and we think we will triple that in 2021. So we 100% believe in the Amazon sales channel, while at the same time understanding that there's a lot of folks that make noise, but they don't really understand that this is a real business, or they've never transitioned from that luck phase to making it a real business. So we want to bring you folks who are either in that transitioning period or have already surpassed that, and they're building and bringing that up. So encourage you to go back, watch the rest of the interviews. If you've enjoyed this interview, if you have a question for Jeffrey, I encourage you, drop it below. I know Jeffrey is transparent, he's vulnerable, and he will take time to answer any question that you may have. He shared earlier, he was able to collaborate with Craig Soderdahl. It was in a mentoring program. He paid Craig, and Craig helped him tremendously as he started out on this journey. I know myself personally, I have depended heavily on folks who are more seasoned than me and understood selling on Amazon as well as private labeling. And that's been a huge benefit for me as I've been growing this business. So make sure, comment below. If you're watching this on YouTube, same thing. Any questions you have, drop them below. Hit the like button if you're enjoying these. And we'll see you next time on the Amazing Freedom 100 Real Seller interview series. Jeffrey, thanks a lot so much. I'm going to let you get back to your day and continue building your brand. Take care.